Just to get back to the point a little bit, we were saying that in order to refine the lowest levels, you have to kind of go to the highest levels, right? The Nefesh Elokis on its own doesn't really speak to the Nefesh Bahamas, doesn't really have a way of penetrating him. But because there was the Gilui of Yitzias Mitzrayim, right, which is the Atzmuso Mahuso Yisbarech, such a high level, so then that empowered the Nefesh Elokis to make a dent on the Nefesh Bahamas and to uplift. So we said the same thing happens every year, and that's basically the meaning of the words Usfartem Lachem Macharas HaShabbos. Sfartem Lashon Even Sapir, you will brighten up and elevate the word Sapir, from Sfartem. You'll be able to do that from the level of Macharas HaShabbos, from the day after Shabbos, which we said is a level beyond Shabbos. So we see from here that basically the lowest thing can only be elevated from the very highest thing. Shabbos alone, in other words, is not powerful enough to elevate the weekday. Like he says in here, thank God it has enough power to just elevate itself. It can't elevate other people. So in order to elevate the weekday, you have to have something which is beyond Shabbos. Yeah? So then we turn the conversation to Rabbi Shimon. And basically we said that this is the same Indian of Lag BaOmer, which is Hod Sheba Hod. And of course the Yurtzeit. So first of all, we said that the Indian of Hod Sheba Hod,
and also the day where the Zohar started being written. He started writing the Zohar also on the day of his death, as he requested.
Wait, he wrote the Zohar in his lifetime.
No, it was just his students and his disciples who physically wrote it on the day of his death.
They wrote there were certain parts that he didn't reveal until the day of his death.
Where he asked
But I'm not mistaken, the Zohar, it says it says in the Tanya, he wrote the Zohar in a few months when he was in the cave with his son. But
he wrote it on parchment?
That I'm not sure, but then it says there were certain things that he didn't reveal, that the deepest secrets he kept unrevealed until the last day of his life. And then at the last day of his life, he brought in her special Rabbi Chia, I think it was Rabbi Chia, to write those things down on the day of his death. He commanded them to be written down, those things that had never been written before, on the day of his passing. I'm not sure if it was the whole Zohar or just those things. But the point is that this is an Indian of Hod Sheba Hod. So we just started discussing what's Hod Sheba Hod, and we brought a mashal of a Chacham, Nifla, this wondrous wise man, and then the two people who are trying to appreciate him in some way. One is a Chacham Katan, and one is a simple person. So the Chacham Katan, so the simple, the smaller wise man, he definitely recognizes the wisdom of the great wise man, but he recognizes it because of his own understanding. Right? He understands what he understands, and because he has a feeling for Inyani Seichel, right? He grasps intellectual matters, so he can perceive literally that the Chacham Gadol's intellect is beyond his. So he has a hod, he has a certain acknowledgement and sort of bittul to the wise person, and it stems from the fact that he's able to perceive the hafla, this sort of breed of wonder which this Chacham has. Doesn't grab what it is, mamish, because that's the whole point. It's beyond him, but he gets why it's beyond him. So that's basically a hod, but a hod based on Chabad, right? Because of his understanding, that's why he has hodah. And then the Chacham, the simple person, his yachas to the Chacham Gadol, his connection to this great wise man, is that he doesn't have intellect, he doesn't have emotions. He's basically just very simple, so he doesn't even really understand what he is being modeh to. And because he doesn't even have a feeling for seichel, right? So it's not like his seichel is what leads him to having the bittul, but it's rather something called Hod Sheba Hod, which means that he's modeh that he should be modeh, right? He acknowledges that he needs to acknowledge. He doesn't even have the knowledge that he needs to acknowledge, right? He just has the acknowledgement that he needs to acknowledge.
It happened on Yuma, because like these Hispanic farmers and like they had no clue why the wheat could not get wet, but they're just like saw us and they're like, okay, no problem.
Nice, yeah, that's a good analogy.
Yeah.
Basically, the point is that you also don't know why the wheat can't get wet.
Yeah, but I'm like a
right. No, you know the Torah says.
Yeah.
You don't know why the Torah says, but you know the Torah is a certain wondrous thing that's beyond you. So you're like, okay, whatever I know, I didn't realize that that's beyond me.
Right.
So they don't even know that, So exactly. So basically, we also ended up by saying this is the whole Indian of the Modim D'Rabbanan, right? It's we say Modim Anachnu Lach Al Shanachnu Modim Lach, right? And we pulled out the Siddur. And we showed you that the whole modim that the Rabbanan established was established for this reason, that they were tapping into this level of Hod Shabbat. We say it every day, as we sort of acknowledge this Hod Shabbat every single day. Meaning that's what the Indian of the Rabbanan is that they sort of are recognizing like the ultimate humility of their situation, that there's levels that not only they don't understand, but are like sort of beyond comprehension altogether.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's basically what we get up to.
You see, we acknowledge that whole every day. You just said that.
Because in the modim of the Shemona Esrei, when we say the modim of the Rabbanin, we actually say those words. We acknowledge the fact that we acknowledge you. We don't just say we acknowledge you. Because if we just said we acknowledge you, maybe after class we'll eat the cake.
Okay.
We don't just say we acknowledge you. We say we acknowledge the fact that we need to acknowledge you. In other words, if we acknowledged you, it means we'd recognize you on some level. We recognize that you're higher than us and fit for... We don't even recognize that. We just recognize that we need to recognize that. And we say that in the Modim D'Rabbanan every day. There it is again. The Indian... Okay, so now let's take it inside. That's where we got up to last time, I believe. So the line starts with the word Shebahoda. If there's an extra copy, is there any extra copies?
Yeah.
Or just you can give one to him. No? Okay. So the line starts Shebahoda, and there's a period. It says Ve'inyan zeh hu yisod kabbalas ol shebachol ish Yisrael. Now this quality is the foundation of Kabbalas ol that's inside of every Jew, right? In other words, this is like the bare bones connection that every Jew has to Hashem. Biladei zeh ein lo shayches lekadusha. If you don't have this basic midah, you're basically out of the Jewish family. There, it's like you've foregone your Yiddishkeit completely. Because this is, in other words, this is not holding by some kind of like fantastic level, right? You don't know anything, you don't feel anything. You just basically recognize that you need to recognize Hashem. And so if that comes to it, like really, it kind of absorbs you. If you, it's like this simple person before the Chacham Gadol, right? He doesn't really know the sichas, he doesn't know the maimarim, he doesn't know the mind of the Rebbe. The Rebbe says do something, he'll do it because he recognizes that he's so far away. He's still holding on. If he was a drop further away, this infinite level that's beyond him, he wouldn't be able to have any acknowledgement of it whatsoever. In other words, having acknowledgement, even though acknowledgement, Sheba acknowledgement, means you're infinitely distant, it also gives you some faint connection to the thing that you're dealing with. Right? It's completely beyond anything you can imagine. But the fact that you're sort of like saying, that's beyond anything I can imagine, already is your tiny little link which connects you to it. If you would just sort of take it one step further, and it's literally just beyond anything you can imagine, and you don't recognize that, it's just completely aloof to you. So that puts you out of Kedusha. Right? You're not in it. You're not in its presence anymore.
First question is that how can you can obtain it quickly just by acknowledging it,
Yeah, that's the point. The simple acknowledgement is already a certain...
Because you're
Yeah,
never
it's
going
the-
to achieve his greatness.
It's the easiest thing you can do, but it requires a subservience. It requires for you to pay attention to it, recognize that it's above you, and recognize that you need to do what it says, basically.
Yeah.
You don't have any idea what it is, but I'm saying that's
Like the
basically...
beard, like I hate, this beard is like really annoying, but...
That's what makes a Jew.
Yeah, but how much of it do we have to, like,
This-
are we missing out if we wrap our tefillin a little differently style than him? Our Rabbi, whoever our Rabbi is? Are we missing out on everything with even the little details?
Look, I mean, if you want to put it like that, then I guess so. Because in other words, if you're really recognizing that this person,
There's a superhero.
we're really talking about Hashem, right? So let's not forget that the Rebbe is like a metaphor for Hashem. So in other words, yeah, even in the smallest detail, if you basically say like, it's beyond me, I can do my own thing.
Yeah.
So then you're severing that acknowledgement,
Because
right?
you can never stop the limit of your own thing. Oh, I'll just change this, just change that. Before you know it, you look like a banana.
Dezeu Masha Amra Zal. So where do we see that this is the edge of Kedusha? Right? This is what it says. Man delokar b'modim einu kam l'tchias hamesim. Right? This is like a kind of a scary halacha, but it indicates our point perfectly. It says, he who does not bow, let's say it just says, at modim, which is the modim of the Rabbanan it's talking about. In other words, the second one was what?
What's Modim?
Yeah, in the Shemona Esrei, when the Chazan says modim in the regular Shemona Esrei, so everybody bows with him, and we say a special, modim de Rabbanim.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So it says someone who does not bow at modim, he does not rise for Tchias HaMesim. Yeah, it's a pretty stiff fine on that one. And why is that? Why is it such? We don't find that by really anything else, right? It's like such words like few things. If you deny Tchias HaMesim from the Torah, but very few things just like sort of exclude you from Tchias HaMesim. It's such a simple thing like that. Seemingly, what? What's the idea behind it? He calls man sheyeshbo inyan haodah, because it's not a small thing that you're saying. This hod shabahod, which is in the modim de Rabbanin, is basically your final straw of what connects you to Yiddishkeit. If you're lacking that, you're not a Yid. So also animals don't rise at Tchias HaMesim either. Every time, but at the same time, what is hodah? It's not a certain darga that you have to be on. It's not a high level. It's the lowest thing. It's just simple acknowledgement. Something's bigger than you. It's so big you don't even know what it is, but you're in. So it's just basically like it's a signing up. Like, okay, I recognize that I'm in.
You might not do the right thing.
The truth is that when it says you might not do the right things, that I'm not sure of.
Because it says the Yishlo Tikva.
What do you mean yesh lo tikva?
Go back to
Okay. No, I mean he doesn't have yediyah, but the whole point of it is this is the inyan of Kabbalah soul, right? If a person has hodah, that's what we said. This is the inyan zehu yisod hakabbalah soul shebechol yish Yisrael. And if you're lacking the hodah, you won't do what you're supposed to do, basically, right? If you have the hodah, in other words, in truth, any moment that you're not having this hodah, you sort of do temporarily sever yourself from Hashem. It's just that you didn't mean to, right? But this is what keeps you, properly motivated.
You have to understand, you have to learn.
Right? Even though you could be in a very low level, meaning what? Ein etzlo inyan hayediyah. You know nothing. So long as he has the basic acknowledgement, even though he doesn't know anything, but as long as he recognizes that he's going to follow along to those who do, and if he doesn't have the sort of healthy hodah that he knows a little, but he's going to recognize that which he doesn't know, he has a sort of sheikhs to know. He knows nothing, but at least he has the hodah, sheba hodah, azah yesh lo tikva. Then he has at least a hope, basically, of staying connected with Yiddishkeit. In other words, not that he is going to do something wrong. It's just that he doesn't know anything, but as long as he's dragged along with the crowd, because he recognizes that these people are following some kind of a God which is beyond him, he'll stay inside the cloud. He'll stay inside the safe place.
That's the difference of following like a sheep, following blindly with that one little part.
But this is good to follow blindly in this case, right? He's a sheep. He doesn't know anything. He doesn't know what's going on. But he has a midah in him of holiness. And remember, these are like the midos of a person. We're saying this is the lowest of the midos. I don't know if we got to that yet. But we're going to see in a second that the Indian of Hod Shabahod is called the lowest of the midos. Did we speak about this?
Yeah.
Right? In the inner midos, right? You recall this conversation besides the El? You remember this?
Yeah, I do. I'm just
We're saying
reflecting on what you're
we're saying Yesod and Malchus. What are they? If Hod is the lowest of the midah, those are the midos that are about deflecting your energy outward. It's not really fixing yourself. It's like your hashpa, your influence on others. Right. So when it comes to your inner world, the bottom of what you've got is. So we're saying this is the lowest of your qualities. No one's like priding themselves seemingly on their Hod Shabahod. It's like if you don't have that, you're not going to rise at Tchias HaMesim. But if you at least have that, you're still in the realm of Kedusha, right? Because you're going to, even if you're just a simple sheep, you're a sheep directed to the right follower.
Yeah, but once if you're a sheep,
to the right leader, yeah.
And once you recognize, oh, that's okay, that's the guy I'm going to follow.
Then you got to build up your intellect and so forth. But it starts off with the basic
just
acknowledgement that this is
like, whoa, this is the guy. It may take. I obviously can't keep up with the pack at this point, but clearly I know the pack is following the right guy.
Right, and that's the lowest. It's the easiest thing to do, basically, right? Because it doesn't require much of you, just your basic Yiddishkeit. That's why Hod, Yehudi also comes from the word Hod, right? The whole idea of being of a Yid is like at least you acknowledge. If you don't acknowledge, you push it, you're a goy, basically. That's the idea. That's the difference.
And
right?
if you don't have it, you're like lost without Moses, really. We're like basically in the desert without Moses.
Man de lo kara b'modim. Someone who does not bow at Modim, which means he doesn't have that. And again, Modim is Hod Sheba Hod. It's based on nothing, not any recognition. Shachasur Etzlo Yesod Zeh. He doesn't have that foundation. That is the bottom. Azai Shidraso Nafeches Lanachash. It says that instead of rising for the dead, his spine will turn into a serpent. The Eino Kam L'Tchias HaMesim. He will not rise for Tchias HaMesim.
Wait. Are you talking about Mashiach? What are you talking about? He? You said he will not rise.
Anyone who does not have this basic acknowledgement.
Well, it doesn't matter if the spine turns into a serpent or it's not rising
Does that
from the
mean
dead.
that have Kabbal's
Dead anyway.
What?
According to that, anybody doesn't have Kabbal's turn into a serpent.
Yeah.
It's basically what it's saying. In other words, but
That's why I'm saying it doesn't make any sense.
Why not?
Dead is dead. I mean,
Like,
You're
you're either gonna
What's that?
rot or in the grave or turn into.
and look, and in a certain sense, what's that?
what's the difference? Dead.
No, I mean it's if you,
It's like saying rising from the dead is also weird. They both are weird.
right.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah,
I mean,
I hear you.
It's
It's like sounds like if you're not like a Bainani, you're not going to rise for the dead. Right.
Without connecting yourself.
Still though, what it means if you don't have Kabbalah's soul?
You know, what does that mean?
I guess it probably means like you're like kofir be'iker, you know.
take home mitzvahs.
In other words,
Take all the mitzvahs?
Yeah, but now you know what it means is do them.
I guess in general when the question is posed, it's like, are you in or out? I don't know. It's a tough question, but I mean, I guess it becomes a situation of
All the time.
how often are you having this Hod Shabahod, you know?
Like slowly but surely.
Because you could slip in and out of it, you know. If the second you don't have Kabbalah soul, and you're like throwing off the yoke, at that moment, you're not having the basic acknowledgement, right?
What's the wording? Azayish.
I guess, you know what, I guess the idea is that there's a time and place for Modim, the Rabbanim. In other words, I'll be simple pashtus. It's like when the congregation is bowing down at that moment, like when the call for Modim is said and you don't bow down, you're showing yourself to be out of it, right? So it doesn't say that someone who doesn't bow down Modim You don't have to bow down modim every 5 seconds. You only have to bow down like when the call is made. So maybe it's something like that. It's like when push comes to shove, you show yourself to have Kabbalah soul when the call is made. Like if you're with us or not. I don't know. It's not delineated here exactly. Ubezeh yuvan hakesher l'Rashbi. With this, we can understand how it's connected to Rabbi Shimon. We explained earlier. Now, we didn't explain it in this mimer. He actually is referring to a sicha that Rabbi said in this year, which is Tafshin Yud Aleph, before the mimer, a small sicha, where he says, we explained over there that Al Rashbi Amrazal Shu Haya Echad Mechamisha Talmidim She'amidu Torah. He was one of the 5 students that Hamidu Torah, that they basically stood up or established the Torah after the 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva died, and the whole Torah would have disappeared basically from Am Yisrael if it wasn't for these 5 students, right? They basically reinstated the Torah because it was going to go away. But these barbas there, and we explained, these 5 guys.
Who were the guys? If it's not important now, it's to answer.
Yeah, I mean
know
there was
one.
Eliezer ben Shmua. Take the hard ones first, and. There was the 5th one was there's Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Shimon, and Rabbi Eliezer ben Shmua, and Rabbi Akiva was their teacher, and then there was Rabbi Yossi, not the regular Rabbi Yossi. I forget this Rabbi Yossi. It's a different Rabbi Yossi, but there was a Rabbi Yossi in there, huh? No, Khalifta, Rabbi Yossi ben Khalifta. That's it, right there. Okay, so there's these 5. What's that?
Was Rabbi Eliezer the one who brought down the 13 midot?
That was not that same Rabbi Eliezer, no. As far as I understand. Okay, so. Oh, it wasn't Bechlal the same Rabbi Eliezer. Okay. Anyway, so going on this Inyan, these 5 sages.
5 alive to drink.
These 5 sages, they stood up the whole Torah. And we explained regarding this, the Inyan ha'amido Torah who al derech ma'am razal, like. That the fact that how do they do it? What was their what was their schus of being able to establish the Torah for all generations to come? We said it was like what the sages said about David HaMelech, shehikim ola shel Torah, that he established the yoke of Torah. In other words, the Rebbe goes on over there saying how that's a strange language, that they established the yoke of Torah. It doesn't praise them for their intellect. It doesn't praise them for their brilliance. It says that how do they establish the Torah for the generations forever? Because like David HaMelech, they established the yoke of Torah, which is the Indian Kabbalah soul. Basically, what do they have? They had an unbelievable Kabbalah soul, right? And if you know a little bit about the story of why Rabbi Akiva's students, the 24,000, died, right? It's because they sort of in some way lacked this Indian of Kabbalah soul, because they were, the whole story is that they had this unbelievable desire to influence people, and basically the story goes they had the ratzo and not the shov, meaning what? They had the passion but not the discipline to basically curb their passions when necessary and just do the job that needed to get done for the sake of the world. And there's a long story behind that which we won't get into right now, but these 5 students, primarily Rabbi Shimon, they fixed that broken midah that was found in the others, and therefore the whole Inyan that they were able to establish a Torah was because of their Kabbalah soul. And this is the Inyan of Hod Shebahod. So in other words, we see that Rabbi Shimon obviously was of the 5 students, he was the one that sort of really demonstrated this to the most, the point that his yurtzeit, which of course the yurtzeit is known, it's a symbolic of the entire life's work. It's on the day of Hod Shebahod, because of all the 5, he literally lived this and embodied this and emblemized this. So the question is, why does Rabbi Shimon need Hod Shebahod? He's the greatest sage of because we're talking about Hashem, right? And there's the recognition, his relationship with Hashem was on a Hod Shebahod level. He realized that you're talking about the Ori and Sof and so forth. He realized that he wasn't approaching Hashem with his intellect, right? And that God was just slightly beyond his intellect, and therefore he could acknowledge Him. He was on a level of acknowledging that he needs to acknowledge, like we said, Hod Shebahod, and therefore he was that last link, that little tiny thing the simplest thing a person can do really is what gives you some type of connection to the highest of highest levels. Now he has a, if you obey the commands of the great king, even though you're just going and doing a simple thing for him, that already gives you a relationship with that great king. So because he had this acknowledgement, that's what linked him to the highest of the highest levels. And therefore he sort of embodied a level of divine reality that no one else had, because they didn't have the same level of acknowledgement. So with this simplest thing that a Yid has in him, it actually is a kli for the deepest and the very highest levels that are available. Because there's no other way to have a relationship with the highest of levels other than Hod Shebahod. You can't know it. And you can't sort of like be a partner with it. It's just, Pasha defies you. It's like infinity. So the only thing you can have is this deep, simple acknowledgement of it, and this faith of it, and this sort of Kabbalah's old towards it. But when you have that, you all of a sudden trigger your relationship with it, and then you become a kli for the highest of high. And this is the union of Hod Shebahod, Hodah Shebahodah, Tachlis HaKabbalah soul. And therefore, he had the ultimate level of Kabbalah soul. It's the union of just like literally sitting buried under the sand, like 24/7, being a servant, because he was that level of Hod was constantly with him. And this midah was specifically in the Rashbi, mishum she'inyano hayla kasher omek rom la'omek tachas. And he also mentions in that sikha that his whole inyan was to connect the highest of the high with the lowest of the low. And we said in general, this is a principle in Chassidus. We said it over there in that sikha, which you didn't see. We actually did read it together one Shabbos. But the idea is that in Torah it says that the beginning is wedged in the end, and the end is wedged in the beginning. Right?
Is that from the Zohar?
That's from the Sefer Yetzirah, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. Right? And so the idea being is that the question is asked, why? Why can't the beginning be wedged in the middle somewhere? In other words, meaning what? The beginning represents the highest of all highest levels, right? And we're saying the highest of all highest levels is specifically wedged in the end, right? Which the lowest of all lowest levels. And in other words, the only place that you can experience or at least hold the very highest levels is when you get to the bottom of all bottom levels. And it's mamash a strange question. It is like kind of like a chok. Seemingly, if the bottom of the bottom levels can experience or hold the highest, why can't one step above it hold it? Or 10 steps above it hold it? It's the same question that the angels themselves were perplexed by, because Hashem says He's going to give the Torah to this lowly earth. He said, Tein hodecha b'shamayim, give your glory to the heavens. Like, why should they get the Torah? We're angels, for crying out loud. Give it to us. And basically his response was no. The beginning is the end. The beginning is wedged in the end, dafka. Right? So what's the meaning behind it is that simply, right, you don't really know what the beginning is until you get to the end. Think of like a mountain, right? If you're on the top of the mountain and you want to know the scope of this mountain, you don't know how high the mountain is if you can just go down to the middle somewhere. Until you get to the extreme end, you have not defined the other extreme end, right? The mountain is, the tip of the mountain is only the tip of the mountain if you start at the bottom, right? And the bottom, if you start at the bottom of the mountain, that's the only really way of defining and clarifying what is truly the tip of this mountain. Because if you start in the middle, you've not appreciated truly the tip of the mountain, because you've only gone from the middle and up. And so you don't know the grandiosity of the tip of the mountain, really. You have not really captured it. It's only when you go to the bottom of the bottom that you basically can have the proper scope of what the top of the top is. And therefore, there's a unique connection between the top of the top and the bottom of the bottom. In other words, the bottom of the bottom reveals, and only it reveals, what the top of the top is. It's just a simple analogy, but when you bring it to the fore over here, it's an amazing thing that the simplest, lowest levels of you specifically are what can define and bring to revelations the highest of levels of Hashem. Right? And that's what we're saying here, the Hod Shebahod, which is basically the bottom, just like there's no grasp of it, just a simple recognition. That's the only way that you can actually access the infinite levels above. Because if you try and grasp it with your brain in some capacity, you're not getting to it, because this thing can't be grasped with the brain. So basically the brain is not a kli to hold on to this level. It's not expressing the level. It doesn't have what it takes to show what this level is. The only thing that can show what this level is someone who claims and is outright saying, I have no idea what's going on over here. Because you're talking about something infinite, and it can't be grasped. So only someone who lays themselves down on the floor and said, I am not even trying to grasp, this is so far beyond comprehension, only he has it. So basically it can be held, but it has to be held in a kli which is completely bottled to it, and that's a kli which defies the knowledge, defies the emotions. It's just the basic, I'm with you. And so therefore in this level, which is basically in a certain sense just another way of looking at it, we've talked about this before, but it's always an interesting topic. That's why God decided to put His Torah and His will and His infinite wisdom dafka into the Gashmius world, right? Because the Gashmius, there's infinite universes, right? And one is defined by the next by their level of sophistication, basically. As you go spiritually, what makes one world higher than the other? There's no space, there's no time, because they grasp Hashem a little bit more. And you go up one, you grasp Hashem a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more, but that goes on forever. So you define one world from the other, one angel from the other, right? One spiritual entity from the other by how much they grasp. If you're higher, closer to the Orient, so if you have bigger vessels, you can grasp more. If you're further away, you can grasp less. Well, this physical reality, Hashem created like the dumbest beast in town. It doesn't even have the ability to grasp anything. And when I'm talking about the Gashmius, right, the material of physicality which we've been placed into, this material, which being not Ruchnius, it can't hold any understanding of Hashem. It's like a rock trying to explain Chokhmah to a rock. You're talking to the wrong guy, right? It can't grasp anything. It's made like that. So but Dafka in this place, Hashem wanted to give the Torah. Why is that? Because the point is the Torah cannot be grasped. So if you tried to give it to a realm of reality which defines itself as being a grasper on some level or another, they're not even a contender. Because they're going to try to approach Hashem by grasping Him in some way, and that's not doable. So He made a dimension which by definition can't grasp anything, and that is the only fit kli in order to actually grasp the Eibishter, which is ungraspable. And that's exactly what Hod Shabbat is. Hod Shabbat is not trying to grasp anything, it's just putting itself down and saying, I'm with you. And therefore it holds the infinite. So this is Rashbi's Inyan. His whole focus in life was to connect Omek Rome with Omek Tachas. His job was to connect the highest, the tip of the mountain, with the lowest part of the mountain. And therefore he did it in himself. He was the Hod Shebahod. And therefore he actually linked into the Ein Sof. He was the highest person that ever lived on the face of the earth. He was the greatest sage that ever lived. You know, there's Maimarim from the Rabbi that blow your mind talking about who the Rashbi is. And he basically says that the whole Torah, all the sages of the Torah, every one that's ever mentioned in the Gemara and the Mishnah, all the Tanoim, they were only able to receive their wisdom from the Rashbi. He was the source of information, not just intellectual information, but like the source of their life, basically, that everything was received from him. He was not like regular human being. He was like this being whose job it was, he had a certain role that he played in reality, and the role was this exact thing. There was a certain level of infinite divinity, Ein Sof, the essence of Hashem, that was destined to come and be revealed to the world. And he was the only person that could access it, and it was because he had this Inyan of Hod Shebahod. He made himself the bottom of the mountain, and therefore he had access to the top of the mountain. So he brought this level of reality in. That was his purpose, to connect the highest to the lowest. L'chein, and therefore al yadei shagila pnimiyas haTorah b'yom histalkuso, by revealing the secrets of the Torah on the day of his passing, sha'az hayagilu desodos na'alim b'yoser, they were the most hidden secrets that could possibly be. Shelo gila me'olam, they were never revealed before. Right, so this is talking about, right, Eli, the secrets of the secrets, basically, the day of his passing. And therefore, because he had this, he was able to also affect the lowest level. Because he brought forth the highest level, right? This highest level, it also works the other way around. Just like the beginning is wedged in the end is also wedged in the beginning. Meaning to say that because he brought this highest level down, it now there was the tools to be able to affect the lowest of the lowest levels. Let's just go back to what we said in the whole mimer, the premise of the whole mimer. How can you affect your nefesh Bahamas, such a low thing? Your godly soul alone can't do it. You need the power of Yetzias Mitzrayim, the koach of Mimacharas HaShabbos, right? Like we said, this level which is the Ein Sof, infinity. If that level is not found, you will not be empowered to elevate the lowest things. You remember this whole conversation? So now what we're saying is, the Rashbi, it's kind of like an inverted thing over here. On one hand, he made himself at the lowest level before Hashem, and therefore he accessed the highest level. But now that highest level was accessed in reality, he made it available that there was this huge influx of energy from the Ein Sof, that now it was possible for the rest of the world to elevate their lowest level, which is the Nefesh Bahamis. You see what I'm saying? He made himself the lowest level and accessed the highest level. Now the highest level was accessed. The whole creation had now had the ammunition to empower themselves to elevate the lowest level. Because only the highest thing can reach down to the lowest thing.
What was Yiddishkeit, whatever, what was it?
Yiddishkeit like before him?
Yeah.
It was a different creation. It was a different Indian altogether. Different animal.
Do you have any idea what?
I mean, I guess the idea is that...
He does have an idea.
No pun intended, definitely.
no, just I guess, like, look what, in a certain sense, he overcame. I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, but like...
Yeah.
Wait, is it all about basically waking up your animal body to the fact that this stuff is real? Is that because basically that's what he did? He just buried himself and said, "I'm not moving until you give me everything." As far as I can understand, like I'm not letting this monkey body do anything except dedicate all
Right.
his energy. Because that's
Right.
what we're trying to do. Am I understand? Like the whole world's going to be at his level one day.
I mean, that's a strong statement, but okay.
I mean, after the Mashiach comes and he teaches everybody how to be that person. Right?
Man.
Or we could just do
Okay. Okay, so anyway, through the fact that he brought this into the world,
That's great.
it then could affect the Omek Tachas. It could affect the lowest of all lowest levels. Gam b'medregas hod shebahod. In other words, even to this lowly aspect in a person, right, which is your midah of hod shebahod, this is like the lowest thing that you have, just a basic recognition. That's in a certain sense your lowest quality. The person who's only holding by that level, in other words, he has not, even down to there, the Rashbi was able to come and pick such a person up. Shu tachlis yirida. So in other words, we're ultimately, look at it another way. During the Spheres of Omer, we're trying to elevate our midos, and the lowest midah that we have is hod shebahod. So dafka also on, that's where also sudden also again Rashbi comes in, because when it comes to our avodas Hashem, we're trying to pick ourselves up. The lowest, most pushed off level that a person can have. In other words, also dafka there, the Rashbi is able to come down and pick us up. That's his day. He's able to get us from the bottom. Because at that time, for the Rashbi, he reached the highest level. He reached even higher than Pnimiyas HaTorah. In other words, in order to get Pnimiyas HaTorah to come down here, Pnimiyas HaTorah is like Shabbos. In order to get Shabbos to come down and do its job, he had to go above Pnimiyas HaTorah. Therefore, he was able to come down all the way, bring down Hod Shebahod, Tachlis HaYerida, the lowest of all descents. The canal.
How does he stay at the level of Hod Shebahod? Because as soon as he has any kind of revelation that he perceivably understands, then he's not at this level of like, I don't get anything.
Right, so it's like the Alter Rebbe always says, like, I don't want your Gan Eden HaTachton, I don't want your Gan Eden HaElyon or Olam Haba, I just want you.
Right.
And the idea behind that is like, if you, for a second, get mispoiled or affected by the revelations that you're drawing down, you're right, you like lose that status. So, like the Alter Rebbe, he didn't get affected by it. No, he was always so focused on the Atzmus, just like, and that he didn't,
Atzmus, what's that mean?
the essence of Hashem. In other words, because you're right, the second you get excited about a revelation that you experience, you're back to being a self.
Right.
That was not the Rashbi. He didn't ever have that experience. He was just like a continuous state of perfection.
because he locked himself in a cave and was a freak, kind of? I mean, like...
No, he was not a freak.
No, but I mean...
We can't make projections on other people.
No, I'm
especially not
just
the
saying,
Rashbi.
I'm just saying, look what it took.
It
It took him...
cave.
Right, it was after the cave, before the cave.
Before the cave also, right? Before the cave, after the cave. That's only one thing.
Right, that was just a little stint.
Oh, okay, so caves don't
I
do
mean,
it.
he was stuck there. I mean, the Romans were after him.
Yeah, it's
You
kind
had
of
to-
important to
you
clarify
had to
some of
get
these
away.
points here.
V'kanal shedafka odei amshachim b'chinas mecharas haShabbos. So this is all basically tapping back into the whole mimer, which is only through a drawing forth of what's called beyond Shabbos, which is asmuso umahusu yizborach, which is the very essence of Hashem. Efshar lifol es habiru de nefesh habahamis. Only in such a way is it possible to affect your nefesh habahamis. Ubifrat hamidos shaba, particularly the midos of the nefesh habahamis, as opposed to merely the intellect of the nefesh habahamis. Shetachlis hayirida shebazeh hi bechinas hod shabahod. And the lowest, basically, the nefesh habahamis can go. In other words, the lowest midah that it has is this hod shabahod. And what does that mean? We said it a few times. What does it exactly mean? Is that if you don't have that lowest midah, your nefesh habahamis, it's not going to get back for tchias hamesim. In other words, it's basically like, it's like a Roman. In other words, and that's kind of what you asked me before, like what was the world like before? It's like he took that out of the world, like just an unbelievable coarseness that even just like a stam recognition of that there's a God, basically, like you couldn't imagine like how coarse that made people to be on such a level. They didn't even have basic hod shebahod. So Rabbi Shimon, like whatever he brought into the world, he took care of that. We talk about oftentimes like the world went through stages. Before the flood, for example, it says that people couldn't even do tshuva. Noach was for 120 years trying to get people to do tshuva, and he was a tzaddik, the greatest tzaddik of all, of the world. No one was listening to him. Why? It wasn't his fault. There's some explanations that say he stayed in his boat and he didn't try and like affect the people the way Avram did. He went out and affected the world, and I saw a sikh from the Rabbi says it's not so simple. The world was so coarse. He did try and affect people. He tried to get them to come on his boat. No one came because it was so coarse. That's why the flood had to come and like change the very nature of the world, right? And then the world was still it was risen from that level, but it still wasn't fit to have the Torah in it. So there had to be a whole other strain of 10 generations. Really, it was from Noach to Avram was 10 generations until Moshe was 17 generations, until the world could be refined to the level that it already was able to receive the Torah, right? And still, the Torah was in the world, Baruch Hashem, but it was like a coarseness and an evilness, So basically what happened is you have a sage like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. This is sort of what led the way for the world basically to prepare for Mashiach. He brought the Torah of Mashiach into the world. So until whatever he did to the world, whether it was accomplished by Noach, or whether it was accomplished by Moshe, or was accomplished by Rabbi Shimon, he took like this basic thing that at least there should be hod shebahod. At least the basic of the basic recognition that you're not just going to be like a Roman, just unbridled, just like, coarseness that you couldn't even imagine in such a time like this. This is what the world looked like before him, basically. He brought this into the world and refined the world on the most coarsest of levels. You might want to say this, so what's left to do? Okay, there's still Yesod and Malchus. In other words, to make it and express it into every part of the world. But the inner dimension of the world had been forever changed. Just like the Rebbe is telling us, like all the sparks have been refined, the birur is finished, so that means Mashiach's here, right? Okay, there's one left thing for us to do is like basically activate it, right? But there was, before the Rebbe said that, it seemed that there was something left undone inwardly that it was not possible to activate it yet.
And what is that?
So it's a similar thing with the Rashbi. He got to Hod Shebahod. Okay, he didn't bring Mashiach. It wasn't like mamash the end, but it was the end of some type of inner work that some like just chutzpah inside of the dimension of reality. He took care of it. Right? He the lowest level of the midos, Hod Shebahod, he was able to get down that far and uplift it and fix it, like basically in the worlds. You got it, Levi? Okay. That's all you need. All right. As explained elsewhere, it is the completion the totality of the refinement of the midos themselves, as we just said. As far as when you go beyond there, it's already the expression of the midos as opposed to the midos themselves. And how does this work in terms of our own service? That having Kabbalah soul is the avoda of basically taking on the yoke of heaven. Which means you don't consider any limitations on the standpoint of time and space. What does he mean by that? Is you're like, listen, the Torah is true, I'm a Yid. I don't care if, the class is only, or the train only leaves on Saturday. I'm not taking the train. Right? I don't, in other words, you have a certain, Kabbalah soul. You're not going to do whatever you want. Right? This is in Avodas Hashem. It's like the basic quality which puts you in the cloud as opposed to kicking you out of the cloud is that you recognize, what I'm saying, as they say in the current parlance, you got to recognize. If you don't recognize, you're out. You're going to turn into a snake, basically. You have to basically put yourself in and just say, okay, I'm not going to try and outsmart this one. I think this God is pretty much the God. And guess what? When you do that it's a big move in a person. I'm sure everybody here pretty much did tshuva at some point, decided they're going to keep Shabbos. It's a huge move, right? You basically you just turn the page of your life, and even though it's the simplest thing, what are you doing? You're learning Gemara, you're learning Tosafos. You just made a decision. You just had Kabbalah soul. But when you do that, you get to it's the bottom of the mountain. Suddenly you have access to the top of the mountain. Your simple decision to be like Modeh is a kli for the ultimate levels of the highest levels of kedusha. So suddenly you're like a yid, mamish. You're going to have tchiz amesim. You access that when you hit the bottom, when you elevate the bottom, you access the top, and the top is beyond the entire seder ishtalshlus. It's the essence of Hashem. V'hinei al pi anal muvan ketzad biyom lag ba'omer haya shleimus abiru demishacheni acharecha narutza. Based on this, we can understand why Lag BaOmer is the completion of what we were saying, the avoda of the 2 months of Nisan and Iyar, whereas Nisan was called Meshacheni. Oh yeah, everyone has another copy. I have the copy of the last page.
About the dead.
We're gonna have to. I think we're gonna have to hold here. Actually, pretty much came to the end of the time. All right, so you know what? We're gonna have to hold here. Let me have those copies back. Actually,
does the Arizal hang out at his cemetery, his spirit, most of the time, or does he go see Star Wars?
There's a.
Can he go?
Some people say he hangs out in his shul, in that little.
That's what I'm saying.
No, the shul down there.
Where did he go? His body's here.
His
soul's here.
Different parts of his soul.
I thought it was a bad spirit that was in the bad.
What's that?
Show.
Is your soul on the table?
They stay here.
I'm not gonna tell the Arizal where to find himself. But
where is the soul before it goes into a
overall,
body?
in general, don't our nefesh hang around our tomb, except for Shabbos, and then the ruachs, and then this part of it can be at this shul. We don't have to be more.
There is such a concept like that, definitely. I'm just saying, really, it's just theoretical. I mean,
We don't know.
the Arizal can be wherever he wants to.
Where are souls before they go inside the body, inside the womb? Are they here?
They're
or
in
are
a place.
space?
They're in a place called the goof.
Yeah, but I know they're in the goof. But
No,
is the goof here?
no. I'm telling you, you don't know. There's some kind of a kli above in the heavens, which is called the goof, and it holds all the souls before they come down into the body.
But are they at the level of the clouds or level of space?
No, they're not in this world at all.
It's all
I know
here.
that, but they're
It's
not
all
in.
here.
No, but they're
It's all
not in
different.
this world. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They're not in this world, in this consciousness, but they're here. You want to say, the Rebbe is here with us in our class, as far as I understand. It's just he's not in this dimension, so we can't see him, or we're not.
Now you're going to push him out of this dimension.
No, I'm saying they're in a different world. He's in a different world. That's what I mean.
They're all the world. That's what I'm trying to say. You can't push them around.
Yeah, but those worlds are here.
Hey,
We
so
don't.
those
They're
bumphills
not
we'll see.
They're not near Saturn. They're in this location. Meaning we just can't see that world, but that world is here. Okay. Because the world has.